Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Dig In with Dad. Today, we're gonna make a pasta dinner, and we're gonna start by making our sauce. As with a lot of things, it always tastes better when it's homemade and made from scratch. So, for our sauce, we're just gonna use very basic ingredients. It's not one of the things that is very quick to make, but it's also not very difficult. So, with a little bit of patience, we will make a fantastic dinner for everybody, and it's a good way to sneak in vegetables for the kids. You won't even know it's in there. So let's get into it. We're gonna start by prepping our ingredients, and really comes down to just a basic white onion and a couple carrots. Okay, I'll see you over at the stove.
Wow.
Okay, so we are over on the stove here, and we're just using a high-sided, we'll call it a frying pan. Right? You can use a Dutch oven, you can use whatever you've got. And we're going to start with just a little splash of olive oil. We're just going to let that get warm. I'm going to help this go all around the pan. Wonderful, good enough. Okay, and we don't need to be screaming hot. We're probably about medium heat right now. Okay, then we're going to take our onions and our carrots, and we're just going to get those into our pan here. All right, and we'll let those kind of sweat out and cook down a little bit just for a few minutes. All right, so after about 5, 7, 10 minutes, somewhere in there, you're going to cook down to something that looks like this. Okay, onions are going to be nice and soft, and it's going to smell pretty good. Next, we're going to add in some minced garlic. Okay, you can kind of use as much or as little as you like. We're going to do something like that. And your garlic won't need to cook down nearly as long, because you don't want that garlic to burn, right? Then it's going to taste very, very gross. You don't want that. So let's let that warm through. Then we'll move on to our next step here. And we're almost there, guys. Quick and easy. All right, so we've let that garlic kind of cook down just a touch. Not too much again, no, right? We don't want to burn it. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of make a little bit of a hole here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a pound of ground beef. Okay? You don't have to add meat if you don't want to. And you can certainly add other ground meat if you prefer, right? You could do maybe a ground turkey, ground chicken if you want something a little lean. You can ground pork. Alright, and we're just going to brown off this beef here. Break it up into our little bits. Obviously you don't want big honking chunks. We're going to continue to stir this around. We're going to mix it in, brown it off, and we're going to come back when the meat's all done, okay? Alright, once we've got our beef all browned off here, or whatever meat you're going to use, and it's cooked in there, we should have something that looks something like this. Everything is really coming together. Smells wonderful. Next step, okay? Next step is we're going to have a big boy can of crushed tomatoes. Okay? And we're also going to add in some salt and pepper here, just for some basic seasoning, right? You do whatever you want to do. If you want to get a little bit of kick in there, you can also add in some chili flakes, but that's entirely up to you. All right, so we're just going to get this all through here. Wonderful. Now you may be thinking, hey Dad, that looks a little bit thick, like with 3 C's. That's because we're not quite there yet. So what we're going to do, we got a couple more steps. Next one is we're going to add just a splash of wine, maybe a couple glugs. In this case, we're using red wine. You can use white wine if you want to, right? The alcohol will cook off, right? So just because we're serving it to the kids, they're not going to get drunk off of dinner. So there's one glug, there's two glugs, and there's a glug for me. And we're just going to stir that through. Very good. Now it should be noted, I think we're kind of crossing into Bolognese territory when you add the meat, right? Whereas more of just the traditional sauce is without meat. So, and one last one here, just to kind of give it a little bit of creaminess, is we're going to add milk, right? You can use whatever kind you have. If you're a whole milk drinker, great, drink whole milk. If not, well then you drink whatever you got. So I'm going to pour that in there, and then we're just going to stir that through as well. Right? And now we're looking like we got something going here. And you adjust to whatever you like, right? If you like a really runny and a thin sauce, that's cool, right? Add a little more wine, add a little more milk, add a little bit more. You can even use your pasta water, right? If you're going to be doing that. But if you like, something to this kind of consistency, and remember, we're going to cook this down, so it's going to increase, right? You adjust to your taste, right? That's kind of the flexibility. We're going to do just a little bit more because I know that this is going to cook down, and we don't want it to be super, super thick. So, last quick step is we have some fresh basil and fresh parsley. We just ripped up a bunch, just with your hands, right? You don't need to chop it up nice. And we're just going to stir that through. Great. Okay, and now, right, so far, this isn't difficult, right? Now here comes the patience part. We're going to turn the heat down, and we're just going to let this simmer, right? And obviously, if you can let it sit for longer, the better. But if you only have, let's say, 20 minutes, half hour to let this simmer and get together, that's fine too, right? Not the end of the world. But we're going to mix this through, and we're going to let this simmer while we work on our pasta. So we're going to reduce the heat, let this simmer for about an hour, maybe two, and we'll come back right at the end here, but let's get to making our pasta. Okay, we've got our sauce going in the back here. Let's get to making our pasta. Again, super simple. We've got our ingredients here. We have our never-ending bag of flour. We have a little bit of salt. We have our olive oil, and we have 3 eggs. So let's get to it. First, we're going to start with some flour. Okay, and we are going to do this largely by hand. We could do it with a KitchenAid mixer or something like that, but where's the fun in that? Now, the fun starts by just putting our flour right on the counter. Never-ending bag is getting a little low. All right. All right, so we've got our flour. We're just going to make, call it a nest, call it a little volcano, call it a hole in the middle, whatever you want. All right, something like that. Great. Then we're going to take essentially everything else, our eggs, our salt, and our olive oil, put it right in the middle, okay? We don't need to use too much salt because we are going to remember to salt our pasta water, right? And then again, just a little squirt of olive oil. We don't need too much. All right, and from there, we're really just going to kind of mix everything together, and you're going to try and pull this together into a dough. So let's come back in just a few minutes and kind of see how we do that, okay? when you think you might be done, you're not. You gotta keep going. It's so hard. It'll look like a shaggy dough, and it will be tough. You gotta just keep kneading and working it, right? And it's eventually gonna come into, it'll come together. It will be a dough. You can sprinkle your fingers with a little bit of water if it really is super, super dry. And then if it gets too sticky, sprinkle a little bit of flour. But in the meantime, keep working, keep working. Oh, it's so tough. It's so bad. Oh, it's a deep burn. It's a deep burn. Okay. Got our ball of dough. I'm just gonna grab a sheet of saran wrap, plastic wrap, whatever. And we're just gonna wrap this up. Okay. Wonderful. Sit on the counter, room temperature, for about half an hour. Just let it hang out, okay? We'll be back after that. That's where we're gonna roll everything up and we're gonna actually shape our noodles, okay? Okay, it's been about half an hour. Our dough's been resting here on the counter. Next step is, we're actually just gonna divide it into 4 equal pieces. Now, the funny thing about making pasta from scratch like this is I've found, when you go to make, let's say, spaghetti, right? And you open the package and you go, I don't really think that's gonna be enough to feed the family. I better do a little bit more. And then you accidentally make enough to feed a village. This is enough to feed the village. Okay? It is going to make a ridiculous amount of pasta. But let's get to it then. So, just take our dough and very simply, okay, cut in half again. So we have 4 quarters. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're just going to roll these out. Just make them a little bit flatter, and we'll do a little dusting. Right? We don't want anything to stick. Let's take our little dough piece here. And what we're aiming for, ideally, is like a long, narrow, a rectangle, sorry. There we go. So, roll this out, and again, it doesn't have to be awesome because we're gonna get to our next tool and it is really gonna do all the work for us. Now, I know that we don't normally like to use a lot of special equipment. I would call this special equipment. It is not fancy, it's manual. It's about 20 bucks. It is essentially a manual pasta machine. And we'll show you that here in just a second. Maybe just a couple more runs through with our rolling pin. Okay. And something like this, good enough for now. So let's take it over to our machine and see what we get. Okay, so this is our machine, and we're just gonna start running through here, but you may be saying, hey Dad, I can't see what you're doing. Well, good thing on Digging with Dad, we have advanced technology. Welcome to the other side. Anyway, here's our machine. Again, very basic machine, right? You clamp it to your countertop and you can roll your pasta through here, and what it does is it's just gonna roll it super thin again and again and again. So, handle in. We take our little roll of pasta and you just keep cranking and you feed that little bit that we just rolled out right through, right? And this is what you get, okay? Now we're gonna start on this machine with the widest setting, right? There's a dial on the side here where you can say essentially fat to uber skinny. We're gonna start extra fat so that we can get that dough through. Then with every pass, we're gonna move it a little bit skinnier, right? So it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. again. Now I did knock it down 2 notches because I'm a rebel. Not difficult at all. And we just picked this up at like a kitchen gadget store or something, right? They are not fancy. You don't need to get an extra fancy one with all the bells and whistles. If you have the KitchenAid attachments, that's great. You can use those. Totally not required though. Okay, a little bit skinnier again. Let's do 2 notches again. You know why. Okay, and we're essentially going to keep doing this, see, and we're getting longer and longer, thinner and thinner. We're going to keep doing this until you get to the thickness of the pasta that you want, okay? And then we'll move on to the next stage, and really quick, our next stage is this second attachment for this machine. Comes with it for the same 20 bucks. It kind of clips on here. Did it the right way. Just like this. In this one, we have 2 options of how you want to cut that pasta. Really thin noodles, think like angel hair pasta, something like that, or a little bit thicker and flatter, right? We're going to do the thicker ones because they kind of hold on to that thick sauce that we made earlier just a little bit better, right? Ideally, you know, you can get like a rigatoni or something like that, which we don't have the machine to make, right? Those really scoop up the sauce, but we're going to use this model right here, and it's going to be delicious. So again, we want to try and do this and get the pasta really thin. And while we're doing this, we're going to want to start our water boiling. So a very key difference with homemade pasta and then using the stuff out of like a package, like the dried pasta that you get, homemade pasta will cook way faster, okay? So be ready. Our sauce will be ready. And like I showed you, this amount of dough that we made, it will make enough pasta to feed a village. You may not use it all. You may use it all and just freeze a bunch, right? That's okay. So let's keep rolling it down here, and we'll come back when it's time to cut the pasta into noodles, okay? Time for our next step. So we're going to add on the cutting attachment. Now what we did with our dough once we rolled it out is we cut it down to size, right? Because they were super, super long. We don't want noodles that are that long, so we just cut them to something like this. Maybe you cut those strips into thirds, halves, whatever. However long the noodles you want. So then, we're going to take this here, put our handle into the new cutter, and just roll through. Right, now because we've rolled the pasta so thin already, it's got no problem going through. And now we have beautiful fresh pasta at home. So all we're going to do is we're just going to put those in just little nests right here, right? Just off to the side of the cutting board while we cut the rest of our pasta. After we're done cutting everything, then we'll head over to our pot of boiling water. You cook it just like regular pasta, right? Make sure you salt your water, get a good boil going, but stay there, right? Like we said before, it cooks a lot faster than the dried packaged stuff. So be aware, we'll be back. I don't know if I really need to show you how to cook pasta in boiling water, but we'll show you the end product anyway, okay? All Okay, we're all done. We've cooked our pasta. Time to plate, time to eat. Let's have a look. Here's our sauce, right? We're done cooking it down. Let's have a look. Now this is the kind of consistency that we were going for. We like the thicker sauce, 2-3 C's even. That's great, right? Smells delicious. So, let's get some pasta on a plate and let's eat. A little bit over top, just like this. You guys want to get fancy, you want to add Parmesan cheese. There we go. Homemade pasta, homemade sauce. Enjoy. Thanks for watching.
Oh my god!